Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another little tech breakdown episode. Today, we're going to be going over the Zoom H5. We're going to be continuing our series here, and today we're going to go over the menus and setting of the levels. So you can take a look at our previous episode if you want an overview of the buttons and what they do. But today we're going to dig a little bit deeper and take a look at these menus here. So we're going to get rid of the module. Don't need that. Certainly not for onset sound anyway. So first thing I would always recommend you do anytime you're using a new piece of equipment or rented gear is to go in and do a factory reset. So I'm going to hit the menu button on the side here, hit the menu, and then we can use this little scroll wheel on the side here to go up and down those menus. I'm going to look for system, should be, there we go, system, and I'm going to scroll on down to factory reset and then just hit yes there, and it'll take a second and it'll power off. It's a pleasant little machine saying goodbye, and we'll power that back on, and you'll notice the first thing it's going to ask me for is the time and date. So always a good idea to set that properly. It's a good courtesy for your editor. In order to do that, I'm going to hit this little enter button there, and then we can just use the wheel to go up and down. So currently it's the 2020, and this is October. So where are we? Stop that. There we go. And this is the 18th of October that we're filming this today. So we'll go the other way, get there a little bit quicker. And there we go, 18th. And currently it is 1:12 p.m. So that would be 13:12. 13 and arrow over. Set that to 12. There we go. And now you can see it says record to set. So this is an easy one to overlook. In order to save this information and get out of this, I have to hit the record button, and then it says done, and it's saved that information. The next thing I would always recommend doing, first two things, do that factory reset, then go ahead and format your card. So I'm going to go in here, hit that menu button again on the side. We're going to go down to SD card. I'm going to go in on SD card, and I'm going to go to format. So go on up to yes, and make sure you format that card. Always a good place to start there. So as soon as that's done formatting, we will hit the menu button again. So go back out to your main menu, and we can start going through each of these options here. So I'm going to start here with, let's see. And we'll start with system here. So we already did date and time. So if you need to change it, you can go back in there, hit the menu to get back out. Backlight, I always like to turn the backlight on. I don't like the backlight constantly turning off on me. It just gets annoying, and I always want to see those levels. It will use a little bit more battery having that backlight on, but it's pretty negligible. So I like to have that backlight just on the whole time. Otherwise, you can change it to auto turn off after a few seconds, or just not be on at all. Mostly that's just for saving battery life, but I would rather watch my meters. Next, display contrast. Let me change that, give you a little bit more contrast here for the camera. Just depends on, how much light you have and how much contrast you need. That's a case-by-case basis, won't really affect too much. Battery type, you do want to tell the machine what type of batteries you're using. So I put in rechargeable batteries, so I'm going to go to nickel metal hydride. If I was to use disposable batteries, I would go up to alkaline. So alkaline for any disposable batteries, NIMH nickel metal hydride for any of the rechargeable batteries. So since I'm on rechargeable, I just went to NIMH, and basically now the machine will accurately tell me how much battery life I have left. So if you don't change that battery type, you might think you're about to run out of batteries and it's totally fine, or you might think you have tons of battery and it'll just die on you. So make sure you set that battery type correctly, and your battery meter will just be a little bit more accurate. Firmware version, you can check that. I'm using System 2, so yours might be a little bit different. That might explain some differences. Factory reset, we already went through that. And date and time brings us back to our first set. So then we had SD card. We already did a format on the SD card. You could also go into remain to see how much life you have left. This is an 8 gig card, so have just under 8 gigs left. And then we also have performance test. You can run a performance test if you're not sure if your card works well. You just want to have the machine read and write data to it for a little while. That's, mostly if you're either having errors with the card, or if it's a card you just dug out of an old bag or something and you're not sure if it works well, you can always throw it in and run a performance test and make sure that the card seems to be working properly. Let's see here. We can go on down to USB. So in USB, this is where we would turn this machine into an audio interface. So when I plug the USB cable in and then plug that into my computer, I can change this mode to either card reader or audio interface. So card reader is basically just going to make this able to read the information off your SD card, whereas audio interface allows you to plug your microphone into the XLR cable and then use this to go use the USB to go into your computer, into a digital audio workstation, any DAW, Logic or GarageBand or Sound Booth or Pro Tools, anything that is digitally recording audio inside of your computer. You could use this as an interface for. Not certainly the main reason we would use it, but it is a nice little additional bonus feature that this thing offers. Next up, we have the record mode. So there's some important stuff to know about in record, or important thing to understand here. So we have the two different options, multifile and stereofile. So multifile is first off going to give you multiple files every time you record. So that would mean you would have one file for the upper left and right channel, and then you would have one file for channel 1 and one file for channel 2. So multifile would allow you to record all 4 channels at once. If you only want to record 2 channels, either the top 2 microphones or just these 2 inputs, you can just put it down to stereo mode. So I'm going to go down to stereo mode here, or stereo file. And now you can see I only have 2 channels on here that I can record to. So if I wanted to, I could select left and right, but there's no connection there. So if I select 1 and 2, now channel 1 and 2 are connected to the input there. So I can hit the menu and go back into our record mode. We were already there. File list. Honestly, I just ignore file list and folder for the most part. File list is going to bring up the list of files that you've already recorded. If you're in multi-file mode, that will say project instead. It's the same thing. It's just it puts everything in folders. The folder is where you can navigate to essentially different folders. So you can set up, different recordings into different folder structures if you wanted to. It's not something I ever use. Honestly, I just best practice is to format your card at the beginning of every day and then just record directly to the standard folder. That way you don't have to look through everything. You don't have to search out things. Things don't get disorganized or lost. If you're only recording to one folder, it's just a lot easier to manage things. So I don't use the folders at all. Next, we have the in-out. In-out is going to be a lot of different settings for each of your channels. So first off, we have the low-cut filter. You can choose the low-cut filter for either the top input or the inputs 1 and 2, and you can have those that low cut filter. It looks like anywhere between 230 hertz or 237 hertz to 80 hertz. So you can set that to wherever you want to get those low frequencies, or get rid of those low frequencies, I should say, or cut out those low frequencies. So if you wanted to, you could cut out just anything below 80 hertz, or you could cut out anything below, let's say, 168 hertz. It just depends on what it is that you're recording. Honestly, you really don't want to use too much of a low cut filter because you can do it in post-production. So if you're getting like a little bit of electrical hum or something like that, setting the low cut at 80 might be helpful. But, you got to be careful because you start cutting into voice pretty soon there. So if you have a low, rumbly male voice, you could be, cutting into voice frequencies a little bit, even at 80 hertz. So use that low cut filter sparingly, but it is there if you need it. Next, we have the compressor limiter. Now, the compressor limiter I do recommend using, mainly because it is really difficult to reach down and adjust these levels during a take. And quite honestly, if you're watching this video, you're probably not a professional yet. So, you most likely don't have the booming skill to be able to be on top of things constantly. You want to use your booming skills and you want to use your mixing skills to be able to make sure that the levels stay between the thresholds. I'm going to tell you between 20 and 12 the entire time. But the limiter or compressor limiter will help in case those levels get a little bit louder. So when your actor gets a little louder than expected, turning on that limiter will help. And so I'm going to go into that limiter there, compressor limiter, and we're going to go into input, and we're going to go to, input 1 and 2. Input 1 and 2 is down here. So let me back that up. You have input either left or right, or input 1 and 2, or all. We really only care about this 1 and 2 down here. So I will go down to, I'm going to recommend Limit 3 Studio. So I'll bring up the list here. This is from the Zoom manual, all of the different limiter and compressor settings here. So I am recommending that you use this guy here, the Limiter Studio, and that's going to set our threshold for that limiter at -12, and it's going to set the ratio at 8:1. That's not doing a whole lot of limiting. It's just a very minimal amount of limiting, but it is going to act as a bit of a safety net when your actor gets a little bit louder than expected. If your actor is really doing a lot of things that are unexpected, you might want to step up to this limit 1 general here. That will basically increase the amount of limiting that is done, and it does it a little bit sooner. So at the limit 1 general here, the limiter is going to kick in at -14, and then it's going to start at a ratio of 60:1. So it's going to start limiting a lot as soon as that signal goes just above -14. Whereas with Limiter Studio here, you can see that it's going to give us a little bit more leeway. It's going to go up to -12, so the actor can get a little bit louder before that limiter kicks in. And then that limiter, when it does kick in, it's going to kick in at 8:1. So that it's going to bring that level down a lot less than that 60:1. So 60:1 is essentially, for every 1 dB it goes above -14, it's going to bring it down about 60 dB. So it's going to be, quite a big change. So the limiter studio is going to be a little bit more of a softer limiting for that. So again, that's where I recommend. It's not a whole lot of limiting. It's going to be just a little bit of an extra safety net there when that actor gets a little bit louder than expected. So again, that Limit 3 Studio, that is where I would recommend that you go. I pressed in on that to save it, and you can see it's confirmed here, Limit 3 Studio. So I'll get the menu back out. And then Phantom Power. These two are very important. Make sure that you turn the Phantom Power on for your boom microphone, because most likely it does require Phantom Power. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to turn the on off. And most likely I'm just going to be plugged into channel 1 here, so I can put that input 1 and turn that on, or I can turn it on for 2 or all if I wanted to. And then I need to adjust the voltage. So I need to make sure that I'm at 48 volts for that phantom power. That might depend on the microphone you're using, but most onset sound microphones or boom microphones are going to be 48 volt phantom power. Once in a while you will see a 24 or a 12 volt. That's very rare. So you're going to be at 48 volt most of the time. Let's see here. Then we have plug-in power. That's if you need to run power into the USB here. Not necessarily something I advise, because you could get some noise from wherever that power supply is coming from. We also have a pad here. So the pad is going to reduce your level by 20 decibels before it gets into the recording. So it's going to change things quite a bit. And that's going to be only for really loud areas of recording. So if you're recording a live concert or something like that, you might need to put that pad on just to give you a little bit of flexibility. Without that pad, you might have these levels all the way down here and not be able to get to the recording level that you want, to the recording range that you want. So putting that pad on will reduce the amount of loudness, and so you'll be able to dial in that level of recording a little bit more accurately. Again, that's only for really loud recording environments, usually like live concert venues or something like that. Next two, we have MS Matrix and MS Raw Monitor. MS Matrix or MS Raw, that refers to mid-side. This is a way of recording music or instruments, I should say, where you have two microphones at different positions that are going to pick up sound differently from each of those positions. Not something we're going to use at all, but if you get into studio type recording or music recording, you do have some options there for that mid-side recording. Zoom does make a capsule that is specifically for mid-side recording. So that's, they have some options there for how you listen to it. Next one, I do recommend you turn this on, this 1-2 mono mix. So if I go in there and turn that on, basically what that's going to mean is each of the microphones I plug into channel 1 and 2, they're going to come into both ears. So most likely you're going to plug into channel 1 and you're going to want that to come into your left and right ear at the same time. Otherwise you just hear the boom in one ear, and that gets a little bit harder to really monitor. So that mono mix is just going to make sure that each microphone is mixed to come into both ears. You're not left and right stereo there. Next one, line level out. So that's where we talked about the line level or line out here in the previous video. If you wanted to send the signal to camera or another recording device, it would come out of this line out. And this is where you would change how loud that line out is. Most of the time, you're going to leave that at 0. It can't go up. It can't go any louder than 0, but it can get quieter. It can go all the way down to negative 30 dB there if you needed to. But again, most of the time, if you're using line out, it's going to be at 0, and that's going to work fine. Let's see here. So we'll get back out of that. Recording. These are some really important ones. So we'll take a look at recording format here. So recording format, you'll see that we do have a bunch of different formats. We have MP3 and WAV. You're going to stay the hell away from MP3. That is going to be completely useless for what we want. We want WAV quality, and we want WAV quality at least 4824 kilohertz. So in the stereo mode on this machine, you can actually go up to 96 kilohertz and 24-bit, but we want to be at 48 kilohertz and at least 24-bit. 4824 is the industry standard for on-set sound recording. It's also the industry standard for final mix of movies. So we want to be at least at the level our final mix is going to be at. If you wanted to, you could go up though to 96 kilohertz. Basically, that will give you a little bit more dynamic range. It will make you make bigger files, so your file sizes will actually be larger, but won't really make too much of a difference in quality. So not really required. It is certainly an option, but at least 48 kilohertz and 24-bit is a requirement. And quite honestly, that's the main reason that these things became popular recorders in general. They were one of the first low-budget recorders that allowed us to record at 48 kilohertz and 24 bits. That was the Zoom H4n, but either way, this line of recorders, this is basically this option here is what makes it famous and what makes it really useful for on-set sound, because we're already recording higher quality than most cameras can. So this is going to be a fairly high quality recording here. So again, 2448, 24-bit, 48 kilohertz, wave quality sound. We never want MP3. Auto recording. Auto recording is basically you can set a threshold for When a sound gets loud enough, it will automatically start recording. And when a sound gets quiet, it will automatically stop recording. Basically, that's, if you needed to record yourself in a band situation or something like that, you could turn that on. Not something we would ever use an on-set sound. Pre-recording is another option kind of like that. If you turn that on, it'll basically start recording before you hit that record button. Essentially what it means is that the machine is just always listening and always wasting batteries. So it's not really something that we would use unless you're in a documentary situation and you don't know when people are going to start talking. As soon as they start talking, you hit the record button and you got a few seconds before they started talking. Again, though, that's just going to be kind of a waste of batteries because the machine's always going to be on and always listening. So I leave that option off. File naming, only two choices we have there are default or date. Default is going to call everything Zoom 001, Zoom 002. Date is going to be the date and time that you actually pressed record. And then counter setup, you can either count up or count down. I don't really know why you would count down in recording. So for the most part, we're just going to leave that in count up. And then sound marker, you don't really need to mess with any of that stuff. That's for making marks in your tracks. Not something that is going to be really useful for anything we do though. Then we have player setup. If you use playback at all, you can have the track repeat or you can have it play through continuously. Not something we use too often. Tools, that's only for music. So tools, we have a tuner, which if you go in there, it allows you to tune or check the tuning, I should say, of your guitar or a bass or some other instruments there, or just individual notes. And then we also have a metronome there. Again, that's all for music recording, not stuff we use at all. And then we are back to system. So that's pretty much all of the menu options you need to set up. Then we can go ahead and take a look at the levels here. So I'm going to plug in a microphone real quick. And we'll go back out to our main screen. Everything is set up here. And let's see, our microphone's going to be plugged into channel 1 here. So test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you can see we have it on mono mix. So that means that this microphone is coming into both channel 1 and 2, or left and right, and it's coming in at that same level. So ideally with the microphone in position here, I'm going to talk into it and try and dial this level to stay between 20 and 12. Test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So at that distance in my speaking level or my voice, my loudness here, right there is a pretty decent level. You see, I do go past 12 a little bit every once in a while, but that limiter is keeping me from clipping, from going all the way up into 0. And I'm not coming too low here. Most of my voice is staying between that 18 and 12, or above 20 and 12. So if I change that even just a little bit, you can see now I'm way above that 12, or crashing up against that limiter a lot. Or if I bring that down, now all of a sudden I'm pretty low there. I'm way below 20. So it's very subtle here. The amount that you actually have to change that level is very, very delicate. You have to be careful there. So you are going to be doing probably a little bit more mixing with the boom with a machine like this. It's going to be hard to ride those levels as your actor gets louder or quieter. When they start whispering, you got to turn them up just a little bit. Or when they start talking really loud, you got to turn them down. It's going to be hard to kind of keep that in check. So you do probably want to mix with the boom a little bit more with a machine like this, which means when the actor gets louder, you move it a little bit further away. When the actor gets quieter, you move it a little bit closer. But between those two techniques there, that's essentially how you're going to manage the loudness for this recording device. Hope that was helpful for you. Please let me know if you have any questions. Go ahead and throw that in the comments there. I'll try and get back to anyone that does. And check out all the other episodes. We've got some episodes on lavaliers and some episodes on microphones coming up, some other recording devices. So if you have any questions, throw those in the comments there, and like, subscribe, do all the other things and whatnot. Thanks for joining us.